My grandfather is losing his mind, and his last story is the only thing that makes sense. My grandfather told me a story once about a man who fed the dirt his soul. It was one of his fireside specials, the kind he only told when the wind was screaming and the world outside the windows was just a black, angry sea. He called it the story of the farmer and the hungry man. He'd start with a wolf, a great gray bastard of a thing, all ribs and slobber, who stumbles onto a farm so fat with life it seemed impossible. There was a wolf, Zeka would say, his voice a low rumble, and its hunger was a god. First, the wolf took the mice. A rustle in the grain stores, a feast of tiny bones, and then silence. The farmer woke the next morning and told his wife the ill wind she'd felt in the night was a blessing. The vermin were gone. They celebrated. But the next night, the wolf returned. The hunger was still there, chewing on its guts. It slaughtered the ducks and the geese, a mess of feathers and fat. The farmer's wife spoke of the ill wind again, her voice tight with fear. The farmer, trying to be brave for his daughters, called it an echo of their good fortune. That evening, when he came home to an empty poultry yard, he couldn't hide the dread that clung to him like mud. He gathered his family, and they prayed for their sheep. The wolf, its coat now thick and glossy, heard their prayers on the wind, and it laughed. It saw the sheep not as food, but as a monument to its power. It tore through the flock, a frenzy of blood and wool, leaving a field of silent, staring corpses. The next morning, the farmer didn't even cry. His family was ruined. They huddled together, stomachs aching, and prayed again, this time just to survive. That night, the wolf came for the house. It slipped through an unlocked door, a shadow with yellow eyes. It took the daughters first, then the wife. A quick, quiet horror in the dark. It left the farmer for last, a final morsel. But it got full, or bored, and it trotted back to its hill, leaving the man to wake up to a house filled with nothing. And this is the part where Zeka's voice always dropped to a whisper, the part that's been clawing at my insides for the past 2 days. The farmer didn't just get sad. He didn't just get angry. He got hungry. He walked out of his silent house, knelt in his blood-soaked pasture, and plunged his hands into the soil. He started to chant in a language Zeka never named. He offered the dirt a trade. My life for my family, my life for my fortune, my life for you. The wolf, watching from its hill, saw an easy meal. It loped down, fangs dripping. The farmer just kept chanting, his voice getting louder, then softer, then gone. His lips were still moving, but the air was dead. The wolf froze. The wind stopped. The only sound was the frantic thump of its own heart. It looked down. The grass was growing. Not just growing, but climbing, wrapping around its paws like green, living wire. It pulled the wolf to its knees. The beast panicked, snapping at the blades, but they swarmed into its mouth, choking it, dragging its head to the ground. And just before the grass covered its eyes, the wolf saw it. Standing behind the still praying farmer was a man, or a man-shaped thing. Tall, so tall, and thin, impossibly thin, like a scarecrow made of sticks and shadows. Its clothes hung on it, and its head lolled on its neck as if the bone inside had turned to jelly. It didn't have a face, not really, but the wolf knew, in the last second of its life, that the thing was looking right at it, and it was smiling. The next morning, the farmer woke up. His livestock were back. His wife and daughters were at the table, laughing. Everything was perfect. But the farmer, Zeka said, was never the same. He'd just stare out at his fields, with an empty look in his eyes, as if he was waiting for something to come and collect its payment. They have Zeka in a sterile white room on the 3rd floor of St. Jude's. My mom, Anja, thinks he's just sundowning, but the way he screamed last night didn't sound like confusion. It sounded like terror. She was in there with him now, her voice a low murmur against his frantic shouting. Me and my dad, Lev, were sitting in the hallway. The whole place smelled like bleach and quiet desperation. Stubborn old bastard, Lev said, rubbing his eyes. His work pants had dark smudges of dirt on the knees. Takes one to know one, I muttered. I saw my mom's iron will in the set of his jaw. He almost smiled. You're not wrong, kid. A soft voice broke the silence. Cassian? I looked up. It was the nurse from last night, Serena. She had that professionally gentle smile that never quite reaches the eyes. Hey, she offered a hand to my dad. Serena, I'm on your father-in-law's care team. Lev shook it. Lev, nice to meet you. Her eyes came back to me. Can I talk to you for a moment? About what happened just before, the incident? Sure. She gave my dad a polite, expectant look. He got it after a second. Right. I'll go reinforce your mother. He patted my shoulder and disappeared into the room. Serena sat next to me, her posture perfect. I'm sorry you're going through this, Cassian. It must be very difficult. I just nodded. Can you walk me through the conversation you had with your grandfather? The one right before he became agitated with Dr. Sharma. Agitated. That's what they called it when a 70-year-old man tried to claw a doctor's eyes out. Are there charges? No, of course not, she said, her voice like warm milk. Dr. Sharma understands. This is just for our records. We're trying to understand his triggers. She pulled out a small notepad. We think there may be a cognitive issue at play. The word hung in the air. Cognitive. A polite way of saying he was losing his mind. What does that mean? I asked, my voice thin. We're still assessing, she said smoothly. Your cooperation will help us get him the care he needs, whatever that may be. I scrubbed a hand over my face, the exhaustion hitting me like a physical blow. I don't know. He was fine. We were just talking. And I mentioned my dad's work. Your dad's work? Her pen was poised over the paper. He's a surveyor, I said. The word felt wrong in my mouth. He maps property lines, works with the land. I see. She jotted something down. Is there any reason that would upset your grandfather? I searched for a plausible lie. It's just, my mom's been out of a job. I'm flunking out of college. Money's tight. Maybe hearing about Dad working so hard, all the stress, I trailed off, shrugging. It sounded weak even to me. Her pen scratched against the page. And then a weird thing happened. The scratching sound just stopped. Mid-scratch. I looked up at her. Her mouth was moving, forming words, but nothing was coming out. The air in the hallway went completely dead, like someone had thrown a thick blanket over the world. All the beeps and hums of the hospital, gone. Her eyes widened, a flicker of what looked like genuine confusion in them. Then the sound came crashing back in, a scream from my mom. A raw, guttural curse from my dad. The door to Zeka's room flew open. Fuck Lev stumbled out, clutching his face. Blood, bright and shocking, poured through his fingers. Serena was on her feet in a second. What happened? Crazy son of a bitch, Lev sputtered, his words thick. He grabbed me. He said I was tracking it in. Serena shot me a look I couldn't decipher, then steered my dad towards the nurse's station. I didn't move. I just sat there, the echo of Zeka's story ringing in my ears. I drove Lev home in his truck. He spent the whole ride, tilted back, pinching the bridge of his nose, staring at the ceiling. The cab smelled of old coffee and fresh dirt. When we got back, I made him tea while he went to change. Anja got home an hour later. She looked like a ghost, all hollowed out. She dropped her bag by the door and just stood there. Go have a smoke, Lev said, his voice soft. He'd stuffed his nose with cotton. I'll start dinner. Cassian can run you a bath. She gave us a watery smile. Thanks. Lev pulled a cigarette from his pack and lit it for her. They held each other for a second, a silent, swaying hug that made my chest ache with guilt. I had to tell them about college. I had to stop being another weight they had to carry. Kid, Lev said, breaking my trance. Bath. For your mother. I went and did it. The sound of the water filling the old tub was the only noise in the house. While Anja was in the bath and Lev was chopping vegetables at the counter, she came back into the kitchen, a storm cloud in her eyes. Lev, for Christ's sake, she snapped. Your boots. How many times do I have to tell you? Lev didn't even turn around. I took them off on the porch, Anja. Then, what the hell is this? She was pointing at the floor. It wasn't grass clippings. It was a thin, deliberate trail of rich, black soil. It started at the threshold of the front door, like a spilled secret, and led past the kitchen, down the hall. Must have been from yesterday, Lev said, his voice tight. I came straight from the site to the hospital. You scrub those boots raw every single night, she said, her voice rising. You act like you're trying to get something off them that soap and water can't touch. Lev finally turned, the knife still in his hand. Leave it. She just stared at him, then at the trail of dirt, and fled back into the bathroom, slamming the door. Lev let out a long, slow breath and went back to his vegetables. My eyes followed the trail. It was thin, almost not there, a dark whisper on the hardwood. It went right past my parents' bedroom, right past the bathroom. It stopped at my grandfather's closed door.